Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Build business with Chamber 630, one of the largest business organizations in DuPage County. Marketing your business and connecting clients is their priority. Visit chamber630.com or call 630-968-4050 to join today.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, and again,
I'm so
bottom
excited.
of the hour. The manure is going to be piled higher than usual here. When Maine in Heaven's Pixie and Hope join us in studio. Yes, it's Miniature Therapy Horse Friday
Yes.
on the Morning Answer Zoo, and I mean that zoo literally.
I just got to meet them too. They're downstairs. You know,
They're getting
taking care of
waxed.
Some business. They're getting waxed. They have their shoes on because they wear shoes. They have to cover their hoofs. They go to hospitals. They go to different places. But the big news this week is that now you can take one of these miniature therapy horses on an airplane.
Right, exactly. So we're going to simulate what that would be like.
Right. We're going to be in aisle 7. We're going to be in the bulkhead and see if we can get in there. And just so you know, Hope couldn't make it, so we have Winnie today. But I got my
Show
bits
must go
Pixie.
on, Winnie the understudy.
Oh, there they are.
I'm gonna.
Ah!
I'm going to go get waxed, too, after this segment and before we interview the miniature therapy horses.
Oh, see, I mean, it's too cute.
That's awesome.
Oh, my God.
All right.
So awesome.
And
But now we have to
it's
focus.
ridiculous. And
No, but-
you can't see what we can see, so you'll just have to wait. Hold on a second. We have some serious business to attend to. We've got academics and intellectuals on. We can't just go play with the horses yet. That's 8:35 business.
All right, fine. I can't stop staring at him though behind you.
Right now, we've got our friend Jason Hill. He's the DePaul University philosophy professor.
And maybe he likes sugar cubes too.
Sure, who doesn't? Who wants a sugar cube? He is his latest offering is about the rise of cultural and economic jihadism in American civilization. And of course, he's written extensively about the state of Israel and the rhetoric and policy positions of the likes of Representative Rashida Tlaib, Representative Ilhan Omar, who were denied access except for Tlaib's ability to see her grandmother in the West Bank. Written extensively on it, and he has been the subject of significant criticism and tumult on the campus of DePaul for taking a pro-Israel position. There's just no other way to describe it. Jason Hill, thanks. Oh, by the way, also, remember his book. We've had him on the show before to talk about this book. It's excellent. We Have Overcome is the name of the book. An Immigrant's Letter to America, an Immigrant's Open Letter to America. We Have Overcome. You got to check out that book. Jason Hill, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Dan and Amy.
So just before we get to your piece and your sort of an analysis of the cultural and economic jihadism you describe in American civilization and in our politics, your reaction to the controversy surrounding whether or not to allow Tlaib and Omar to visit a state they don't believe should exist, should this be a source of controversy, or is Bibi doing the right thing and was Trump suggesting the right thing?
Oh, I absolutely support Prime Minister Netanyahu's decision not to allow them in, although he did revoke his decision to allow Tlaib in to visit her grandmother on the West Bank. But
Right.
I think it's the right decision. Look, the BDS, what is the BDS? It's really advocating illegal discrimination against a group for no other reason than they constitute an ethnic, racial, religious, or national group. It's advocating illegal discrimination. It's advocating the destruction of Israel. They should not be allowed in. Visitation of Israel is not a human right. It's a privilege, as is the visitation of any country that is a sovereign nation. So I agree completely with the Prime Minister.
Do you think, I don't know if you saw, but Representative Omar's itinerary included visiting Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's going to help or hurt in her efforts to persuade Benjamin Netanyahu to let her in?
No, I hope not. The only good thing about this, Amy and Dan, is that I hope that if they both get led into Israel, that when they re-enter America, that they get detained and get questioned significantly about whether or not they advocated BDS campaign slogans in Israel. It would be fun to see them detained at the airport for a couple of hours and go through a process of interrogation.
But when you see Visit Palestine on their itinerary, you've heard the comments, not just from those two, but also from Ocasio-Cortez about the state of Palestine or the desire for a state of Palestine for those who recognize it doesn't exist, and that's only a couple of them, at least of that crew, the squad. What is that indicative to you of Visit Palestine? What does that say to you?
Well, it's indicative of that they have a prefab agenda, that they're going to advocate a suicidal two-state solution, or they're going there to incite some kind of animosity towards Israel and towards the United States. And that this is not, we should not be fooled to think that this is just some sort of benign visitation on their part. They have, I think, a complete campaign rollout to incite the Palestinians to those who want a two-state solution. And I'm just very, very suspicious of this idea that it's just a neutral visitation.
I wanted to pick up on the piece that you wrote that I referenced, and you can find it at frontpagemag.com. I'll tweet it out at Dan Proft as well, of course. It's not just limited to Omar and Tlaib and Ocasio-Cortez and Ayanna Pressley. Two Democrat presidential candidates you write about, Bernie Sanders, Julian Castro, have agreed to speak before the Islamic Society of North America at their annual convention the end of this month. And what is the significance of those two appearing at that convention?
Well, I think it's very significant. Look, the Islamic Society of North America is associated and affiliated heavily with the Muslim Brotherhood that we know is a designated terrorist organization. I think there are a couple of things that are going on here. I think one is the attempt, right, on the part of these two politicians and other politicians like Ilhan, Omar, and Tlaib, to normalize and to mainstream the radicality of these Islamicists in America, to mainstream their rhetoric, to mainstream their agenda, their jihadist agenda, to change the nature of American policy, which is to attack our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and to slowly implement Sharia law as a parallel system in this country. So I think that's their first agenda, is to begin by normalizing and mainstreaming the radicality of, or the radical nature of these organizations, including the Islamic Society of North America. They're starting with the Islamic Society of North America because it has some degree of respectability and legitimacy in the minds of most Americans. What I think most Americans don't realize is that it's an entity of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a terrorist organization that's been linked to several Islamist and jihad global political movements. These global political movements have as their goal to overturn democracies and to institute Sharia law. That's the first agenda, I think, that's on the part of Sanders and Castro.
When you talk about cultural and economic jihadism in America, is it your concern? And by the way, I love that you referenced one of my favorite Ayn Rand observations, that the uncontested absurdities of today are the accepted slogans of tomorrow. You know, it's a slow process to make the absurd the acceptable, but that's exactly what the Marxists are doing. My question is this still to your mind, the business of Sharia law, Islamism, and a theocratic state, or are we seeing the cultural Marxists across the spectrum pursuing jihadism, cultural and economic jihadism in a ecumenical sense? It's about imposing cultural Marxism irrespective of religious affiliation.
That's right. I agree with both. I think they're using the Islamic Society of North America as a vehicle, as one of many, many vehicles to promote a kind of cultural Marxism on this country, because we know that members of that sort of organization, the Islamic Society of North America, are leftist, radically leftist, and not so radically leftist. But also, I think to mainstream something that is expropriative, is legalized theft, which is socialism. That a couple of years ago, you mentioned a candidate who would mention that I'm a socialist would have been viewed by most Americans with some kind of suspicion, because it's just not in our political DNA to be a socialist country. But again, they're normalizing and mainstreaming what is quite radical given our free market capitalist society. That is an expropriative form of government that really should not even be legal because you can't. It's such an infringement on property rights that socialist organizations, I think, should exist. People should be free to be socialists. But I'm of the opinion that a socialist government is anathema and inimical to our Constitution. So I think that's right. I agree with both of your assessments. I think that they are normalizing and mainstreaming the vocabulary and the philosophy behind socialism and disarming a lot of Americans from their capacity to resist what is really truly a nefarious and a form of political calumny, which is socialism.
And you make the distinction, and this is an important one. I want you to elaborate on the Islamic jihadists kill you. The cultural jihadists seduce you with essentially suicide as a moral virtue, is what you argue.
That's right.
And give me an example of what you're talking about. The seduction, is it sort of the apocalyptic climate change rhetoric? What is it?
Well, yeah, the jihadists will murder you and cut your throats. When I say that the sociocultural jihadists want to sell you suicide as a moral virtue, what I mean really is that in the name of multiculturalism, in the name of acceptance, in the name of toleration, they slowly want to change demographics of this society and transform our Western civilization or American way of life into something that is radically different by seducing you into thinking that this is all being done in the name of tolerance. This is all being done in the name of multiculturalism. This is all being done in the name of accepting different conceptions of a good life, which is part of what America offers to people. We're free to choose a conception of the good life. I'm sorry, accepting individuals and group organizations that have as their goal, as their stated goals, the radical transformation of our way of life is not acceptable. So this is the kind of seduction that I'm talking about, Dan and Amy, where we're led to think that the members of the Islamic Society of North America, that jihadists, are just as morally neutral and benign as, let's say an American who wants to worship a Christmas tree, or who wants to be an atheist, or who doesn't, or wants to put his career or her career before family. These are actually false equivalents, and this is a seduction that we're being fed, that if we just accept and tolerate a multiplicity of viewpoints, then all will be well. And to go the way of the Islamic Society of North America and what their jihadist members are after is a form of cultural suicide, because we would see the death of America as we know it.
I mean, what do you think Sanders and Castro are thinking, that this is going to help them garner votes by going to this conference?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We know that. Like that there are certain demographic populations that tend to vote a certain way, and of course, this is a. I don't think that Sanders, in his heart, may really want Sharia law implemented. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I can't speak for him. I don't understand these people anymore. But I certainly think that it's a way of drawing votes. If you can get the Muslim vote by attending these so-called respectable conventions and addressing them and pulling them in, and by the way, promising them not just the freedom to practice their way of life, which is to implement Sharia law, but offering them, free education, free health care, free Medicaid and Medicare adults from infancy till death. I think this is a very, very significant ploy on the part of both candidates.
Since you're, again, DePaul University professor, philosophy professor Jason Hollis, whom we're speaking with, and DePaul University, a lot of Chicagoans go to DePaul, Catholic university, at least in name. And I mentioned at the outset the heat you've taken on campus from students and the professorate alike for your willingness to speak out as you have done so in our conversation right now. What's life like for you on campus at DePaul with all of these best and brightest coming from the suburbs to go to DePaul, or the city to go to DePaul, and the Catholic-driven mission of the university, at least on paper?
Well, school is out, so I've been devoting my summer to teaching. I must say that every time I've taught summer classes, which I've taught summer classes for 5 years, not consecutively, my classes always fill up immediately. I know my class this summer, thanks to the boycott led by the Students for Justice in Palestine, the college Democrats, the young socialists, my class was canceled. So I think the boycott against me is in all practical purposes, for all practical purposes, succeeding. And in the fall, I've noticed that one of my classes was canceled, and I was told that a number of students, it was an upper level seniors class, so a number of students went to the undergraduate directors and said, I don't want to take a class with that man who's racist against Muslims and who's pro-Israel. So the fight continues. I do have legal counsel, and I'm exploring my options, and I'm continuing to write and won't be silent. And I'm going in there with a calm but intransigent, implacable fighting spirit on behalf of my convictions and on behalf of my values. As I said, they picked on the wrong person to try to bully. So I don't expect life to be easy in the fall. I expect that a lot of students will continue to boycott the class, thanks to the programs and the mechanisms that have been put in place by these student organizations, backed by the administration.
And all these dizzying intellects, both at the student level and the professorate level and the administrative level, apparently they fail to see the irony of boycotting you for criticizing the boycotting of Israel. That's the irony's lost on them, I presume.
Well, of course it's lost on them because they're moral hypocrites.
He is Jason Hill, DePaul University philosophy professor. Again, the book, by the way, for those of you who don't know, haven't familiarized yourself with Jason Hill yet, you should. Jamaican immigrant. So the arguments about Jason Hill, he's afraid of the other.